What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of CM Radio. This is my weekly podcast that I get out every Saturday on SoundCloud at 5 p.m. and YouTube every Monday at 6 p.m. So if you are listening to this on SoundCloud, as always, I appreciate your listen. You honestly have no idea how much it means to me that you'll spend half an hour, 40 minutes of your day listening to me ramble on about topics that you find interesting. But if you do want to watch this rather than listen to it, if you have the spare 45 minutes or so, you can head on over to my YouTube channel on Monday after this Saturday release at 6 p.m, where this is going to be uploaded in video format, so you can see my beautiful face. Well, not so beautiful, because I'm recording it for YouTube. So, but anyway, so this is the 6th podcast in the series. I'm surprised I've kept out of it this long. And that's just because I work a 40-hour job a week. I train. I've got a lot going on, so it's hard to get in these sessions and actually get them done. It's hard to think of topics, and it's hard to get people on and keep it interesting. But it's going well, and I'm absolutely loving it. And if you can't see at the moment, I've got a massive grin on my face because there's so much that I want to do with this podcast and that I can do with it, and I've got stuff coming up and stuff planned that hopefully comes to fruition, and if it does, it's going to take this game to the next level. But until then, we're going to touch on a topic that I'm surprised I haven't covered in the last 6 weeks, because we've covered a lot. I've given you fitness advice. We've talked about lifestyle, relationships, we've talked about toxic relationships, we've talked about building self-confidence. We've even touched on the topic of university and whether you should drop out. So if you haven't, that was last week's episode. If you haven't watched that, go check it out. So this week, I'm going to touch on something that I get a lot as an online personal trainer. And I always refer back to clients. It's because being a personal trainer, a lot of my clients are new to me, and they're new to this industry, and they're new to fitness, and I'm always met with the exact same thing every single time a new client comes to me, and it's the main issue that they have. There's one of two. The first one is they don't know fuck all about training. Fair enough, not everyone does. I didn't, not one bit when I first started training, but the biggest thing that people misunderstand, and it's the hardest thing for me to teach to them and drill through them, is their relationships with foods. And I haven't had this much of an issue happen to me. Well, not in the scale that we're going to talk about it. I've had issues with foods, but never a disorder. I've never had a struggle eating certain foods. I fucking love them. I'll have anything and everything as long as it fits in my macros. But there is a sort of stigma of associating foods with like a high fat food as something that will make you gain weight. So associating foods with certain macronutrients and deeming them bad foods, or deeming foods bad because they have sugars in them. And it's not the case, and that's what we're going to touch on today. The main things that I want to get out of today is how to improve your relationships with foods, what deems a bad relationship with food, how food labels are sort of structured, and the advertisement of food companies and how they manipulate their advertisements to deem things healthier for you, when in reality it may be healthier than it was before, but it's still fucking shit for you. So we're going to touch on that all in this podcast. So we're going to start off with what really deems a bad relationship with foods. Now, as I said, I never had this issue to me. I've never ever gone off certain foods. I've never stayed away from certain foods because of the nature of that food, but I've known a lot of people that have. And actually, my current training partner, I'm not going to name names, but my current training partner, when I first started training with him, or when he first started getting into fitness, he was like 19 stone. He was a big lad, and he's dramatically come down. I think the lowest he's been so far is about the high 13s at the moment. So he's done an incredible job at losing it. But even though he's shedded the weight, the one thing that has sort of hit him hard is his relationship with food. And I've spent the last year trying to improve that with him. So the bad habits that I've noticed that when I started to pick up with him, I started to pick up with a lot of my clients because I started to notice it a lot more. And these are what I would deem as bad traits that cause a bad relationship with food. So we're just going to narrow them down to a few bullet points that I've put down here. So the first one is restricting your calories because of a bad day or you've had a shit day. Okay, so for instance, it's Sunday night and you've come in, you've killed the week, you've absolutely nailed everything, and then you have a binge night. For some strange reason, you just had the urge. So you've gone way over your calories than you intended to do. Now, what a lot of people would do, and what a lot of people have done, and this is something I've done, is the next day they will dramatically decrease their calories to maybe sub 1,000 calories to compensate for that day. Now, even though this isn't as much as having a bad relationship with food, food is a calorie, food is made up of calories, and this is controlling your calories and restricting them. So inevitably you are restricting the food content that you can intake. So it does then become a bad relationship with food. Now the issue of this is this creates a bad habit, something that is going to keep happening week after week. So you've had a shit day, you've had a shit night. The next day, the Monday morning, you decide, hey, to compensate, I'm going to do 200 extra calories of cardio and I'm going to eat 700 less calories. Well, let's say 800 less calories. So your maintenance calories are 1800. You've gone down to 1000 calories and then you've done 1000 calories, an extra like 200 calories of cardio. So let's say you've done 300 calories of cardio. Your net calorie intake is then going to be 700. Okay, this is going to do a few things to you. This is not only going to be I'm trying to think of the word. It's going to be bad. I can't think of the word. It begins with a D. Detrimental. This is not only going to be detrimental to your health, but also to the rest of your week. Because the moment you associate having to restrict calories because you've had a fuck up is then like not you're going to feel hungry regardless because you're on such low calories. The chances of you binging that night or the next day are going to increase. You'll wake up on the Tuesday starving because you've deprived yourself of your body's energy source, so the chances of you binging are more likely, and then you're just going to do the exact same thing that night, and then the process will keep happening. You'll have a binge night, you'll restrict, you'll do good for a day, then the next day your hunger will just spike, and ghrelin will just increase, and it's just a cycle you don't want to get into. Okay, so not only is it going to do that, but it also gives you that trigger that now whenever you eat bad food, you feel like you have to punish yourself the next day, and that's something that you do not need to do. It's gonna be bad for you, as we've just said, in terms of physically and mentally, because you don't need to put that much, unless you're bodybuilding for a show and you need to somehow compensate for what you've just done. There's no reason to. You have no time limit. If you have a bad day, move on with it, accept it. You go over your calories, fair enough, accept it. I've been on a 3.5 month cut for a competition at the moment, and I went out drinking the other weekend for my friend's birthday. I only tracked a little bit of alcohol. I ended up getting blind drunk and drinking way too much, more than 2,000 calories in just liquids. Did I give a shit the next day? Yeah, but I just got back on track, got back on the horse, got back to a structure, and I just carried on. There's no need to decrease calories or restrict calories because it's creating that bad trigger that you don't need, and that trigger punishes you whenever you do this. You may go over your calories because you may not be able to get to your average foods that you eat on a daily basis. There's a ton of reasons why it should happen, so don't punish yourself for it, just accept it. So going on from that, the next thing I want to talk on is eating too little, which, as we just spoke about, is going to leave you feeling hungrier, but most people don't even realise that they may be eating too little. Take my mum, for example. Every single day she'll have like a bag of crisp, a few pieces of bread, and some soup, and she won't even notice that she's eating too little, and she just won't be hungry. Now on the opposite end of the spectrum, you could be eating too much, and you could be having such a good time eating these foods, or you may not be tracking your foods, and you may be using olive oils and sauces that have a lot of calories that you just aren't taking accountability for and tracking and even knowing you're consuming. So if you're trying to lose weight, you don't even know that you're consuming more calories than you actually need to. But just another thing that I want to talk on about eating too low calories, which is why I've brought this up, is because whenever you're dieting, your body produces this substance called leptin, and leptin controls weight loss. So when you diet, leptin goes down. When you restrict your calories, leptin goes down. So if you restrict them too much, leptin hits a rock bottom, and then if you don't sort of have a refeed day, so a few extra carbs in that one day, leptin will stay low, you'll hit a plateau of weight loss, and then this will cause people to go on to a massive binge. Now that's all I wanted to touch on that topic. They're just two topics and scenarios that I've found people have with calories in terms of foods. But now let's talk about like the actual bad relationships that people have with foods. And the first is I want to talk about associating nice foods as bad foods. So stuff like ice cream, Pop-Tarts, biscuits, crisps. What else is there? That's nice. Jeez, I've been on a diet for so long I don't even know what nice fucking foods are. Cake bars, anything like that you like waffles as well. Jesus, they're good. Anything that you assume is a nice food, some people assume them as bad foods. Okay, so people will automatically say just because ice cream is ice cream, it is bad for you. It's going to make you gain weight. Just because a Pop-Tart is a Pop-Tart, you will gain weight. Just because you go to Scoops or Sprinkles, you will gain weight. In most cases, this is true, but the idea is why? Why do you assume that just because these foods are these foods, that they are bad for you? If you take a tub of ice cream and a meal of chicken, rice and broccoli, the macro breakdown and the calorie count for them both is going to be very similar, minus the high protein that the rice, chicken and broccoli will have. The calorie content's going to be near enough the exact same. So why is one food worse than the other? Well, it's because we're in a stigma at the moment in social media and all over media that we can't have nice... If we want to lose weight, we can't have ice cream on a daily basis. We can't have Pop-Tarts. We can't go out for meals with our friends. We can't enjoy a night out drinking. Clearly, I enjoyed it a bit too much the other weekend, so that may be off the table. But you get what I mean. There's no reason why you can't implement these foods into your day-to-day diets and still enjoy what you do and enjoy these foods. So let's take... now in the UK and in Europe, we now do an ice cream that America has done for ages called Halo Top. Now this is a low-calorie alternative ice cream as opposed to like Ben and Jerry's or Magnums or Malteser ice creams. I think I bought a tub today. I actually did a grocery haul. That's not an English thing to say, so it's very awkward to say. I did a food shop, and that is actually something that I picked up. 360 calories for the whole entire tub. As I said in the vlog, I've had about 2 or 3 of these tubs every week since the beginning of this prep. And if I can find my progression picture, I'll put it on the screen now if you're watching the podcast. If you're in SoundCloud, head on over to the podcast and just skip to this time frame and you can see it. I've still lost about 9-10 kilos doing this. So ice creams, it's not bad for you. If you have anything, ice creams can be bad for you. Any food can be bad for you if you have it in an abundance, way too much of it. You can gain weight from eating solely too much chicken, because at the end of the day, it's a calorie. If you go over your calories, then you're going to gain weight. Calories in versus calories out. So you can fit these stuff in, but it just, you have to be sensible. Now, if you know you're going out for a meal later, say if you're going to an ice cream parlor, you're going to Scoops or Sprinkles with your friends on a Tuesday night, the smart thing would be to do on Tuesday throughout the whole entire day, have high protein, low carb, low fat meals, and then when you get to the restaurant or you get to the ice cream parlor, you can have your meal and it will kind of balance out your macro ratios. The bad idea would be to have a full day of calories and then have this food on top, because then you are going way too much into a surplus, and that will promote a lot of fat gain, which you don't want to do. So do never associate those foods with sort of weight gain, and that's anything. Like you can fit Pop Tarts into your calories. You can fit ice creams. You can fit delis. You can fit pasties. You can fit any pastries into your donuts. You can fit cookies. Everything. I'm surprised they're two of the foods that I didn't think of to list in the nice foods. To be fair, because at the moment I'm fucking craving cookies and donuts. A good Nutella donut from Krispy Kreme is what I want, but I can't. Last prep that I did, I actually had a Krispy Kreme with some ice cream. If I can find that picture, I'll put it on screen. And it was fucking incredible. A glazed Nutella Krispy Kreme donut with vanilla ice cream melted on top of it. It was good. It was nice. But I fit that in my macros and I still lost weight the next day. So you can do it. Which brings me into the topic of you need to know what your macro breakdowns are so you can sort of implement this form of flexible dieting into your routine. But next time you sit there and you think a food is bad for you, just think why. What's the difference? What does ice cream have in it in terms of calories that a bag of rice doesn't, or a bag of broccoli doesn't? It will be the thing with these nice foods is that they're going to be more dense in calories for a small volume of food. So you may get a 360 tub of ice cream that will only... You may get a tub of ice cream that's 360 calories. That is only going to be a pint of ice cream. But then you can, for 360 calories, you can get a lot of fruit and veg and a lot of chicken. So you'll have more food to fill up more space in your stomach so you feel more full, but you won't satisfy those cravings. So it's a double-edged sword. You can either satisfy your cravings and not fill up so much, or you can fill up and not satisfy your cravings. It all depends on how you feel for the day. Me, I just go by the... Shit. I just realised I didn't buy any jelly today. I knew I forgot something. In England, we have a shop called Tesco's, and they sell this. Oh, Tesco's, as they everywhere sell it. They sell in America as well. Don't know why I specifically said here in England. Low calorie jelly. Low calorie jelly is fucking incredible. 8 calories for a pot of like maybe 260 grams of it. It's fucking incredible. If I would buy some today, I knew I forgot something. But yeah, you can fit these foods in easily. The next sort of key point that I have is you're associating associating certain macros with weight gain. So a lot of people, a lot of new clients that I get on as well, will stay away from a high carb, high fat diet, and they'll opt for a high protein, low carb, low fat diet, which may work for some, but the reason they give is just ridiculousness, because carbs and fats make you gain weight. As we've just said, any form of calorie, any form of macro will make you gain weight if you're eating too much of it. You can go on a high protein diet, the keto diet. You can have way too much chicken. You can go 500 to 1,000 calories over your recommended daily allowance just in chicken and protein. Well, proteins alone, and you'll gain weight. It doesn't matter. But people see, and I'm not going to go too much into it because there's a lot of stuff you can say about carbs, about like not eating carbs past 6 or not eating breads, and it's just ridiculous. Everyone's an individual, so yes, certain macronutrients will react to different people differently. It's obvious. I react well to a high carb, moderate protein, moderate fat diet. But someone who is the same size as me, same height as me, may react really well to a high protein, low carb, low fat diet. It doesn't matter. You need to stop assuming just because something's high in fat that it will make you gain fat, or just because something contains fat or contains carbs like bread, like cheese, like crisps, like ice cream, just because it contains fat means it's going to make you gain weight. It's not the case. Just because you consume fat, just because you consume carbohydrates, does not mean that you will gain fat or you will store carbs and that will be miraculously turned into fat. It takes a lot to do so. So stop relating these certain macronutrients to weight gain, because every macronutrient can make you gain weight. You just have to find your particular breakdown that you like, and you have to be sensible on how you fit these things into your diet. God, we're 20 minutes into this podcast already. I'm feeling like this podcast isn't as energetic as it could be. Like I said, I'm 3.5 months into a car at the moment, and it's nearly 12 o'clock, and I've only eaten a cereal bar, which is 78 calories. I've only had 100 calories. A cereal bar and a rice cake. Rice cakes are also good. High in fibre, high in good taste, and they're just good for little cravings. Right. So, forgive me if the next few weeks of podcasts are going to be a bit low energy when I'm by myself. I am trying to do these with more people until I finish dieting, because I'm just so tired all the time and it's hard to stay positive and uplifting. But we're going to get there. We're going to do our best. I just hope you guys are learning from these podcasts. So, they're the 4 points that I would deem... They're the 4 points that I would class as having a bad relationship with foods. And like I said, my gym partner has struggled with this for a whole entire year, and it's not a process that you can get over easy. It's taken me months, and I'm talking 6, 8, 9 months to actually help him implement flexible dieting. You have no idea how fucking happy and proud I was when I found out he had gone home, sat in his garden, and had a whole tub of Halo Top mint chocolate chip ice cream to himself and did not feel guilty about it. It was honestly the best feeling I've ever felt about. It was pride. It was pride, man. Seeing his mentality and his mindset change just as an individual in his relationship with food has just... It's something to watch. And if I can make more people do this, it'll be incredible. But what you do need to know is it's not going to be an easy process. Or it all depends down to you. You can make it easy, you can make it hard. He was very resistant to flexible dieting at first. And his reason was because if he can't go little or nothing. He has to go all in or nothing at all. He can't do little bits of things. So he can't have a pack of M&Ms for the day and that be his little shit food for the day. He has to have a whole bag of M&Ms. And I'm kind of the same. The only reason I'm not is because I'm dieting. But if you follow that sort of mentality, that you feel like if you can't have half a tub of ice cream, you have to have the whole entire thing. Well, you're going to have to fucking learn to just deal with it and have half a fucking tub of ice cream and just get on with it. Otherwise, you're fucked. Or you're going to have to really compensate throughout the day and keep your carbs and fats low to compensate for that ice cream. Unless it's Halo Top, because you can fit that shit in on the daily. So the process is just as long as you want to make it. I would recommend starting off slow, implementing one piece of crap food, implementing flexible dieting in once, twice a week, then 2 to 3 times a week, then trying to get it in daily, and just seeing where you go from there, and just start trusting the process that these foods aren't bad for you. Okay, there's a ton of people that follow this. Rob Lipsett, Igor Opachensky, Christian Guzman, Steve Cook, Jeff Nipper, just to name the least of them. Jeff Cavalier, well, not so much Jeff Cavalier, but then you've got Scott Herman Fitness. All these people follow in this sort of philosophy of flexible dieting. You can fit it in within your macros, and these guys are fucking in shape. More in shape than your boy here. So listen, not to me, listen to them. They are proof that you can do it. Massively. So how do you improve your relationships with these foods? Well, first of all, you're gonna need to control your calorie intake. Now we're back onto calories. So to understand, this is gonna help you sort of improve your relationship with foods in terms of your weight won't spike. So as we said earlier about the whole if you're going to an ice cream parlor on Tuesday with your friends, now people will... This is a typical scenario. The average Joe will go the whole of Tuesday or the whole of a day eating all their foods. They'll then go out for a meal with their friends and they'll have like an ice cream or something. The next morning they wake up, they're 5 pounds heavier than they were the day before. It's because they ate ice cream. No, it's because you ate too many fucking calories. Like I said, you need to be in control and manipulate your macros and your calories throughout the day so that you can fit these foods in and you won't cause a spike. Like me, I'll always save 360 calories most nights just in case I do have some ice cream. It will mainly come from carbs and a little bit from fats, just so if I do have any shit foods, my weight won't spike. And that's, a lot of people will do that. A lot of people will go over on calories, but they'll pinpoint it down to that shit food that they had, or down to the ice cream or the burgers that they had. That make them gain weight. No, you had too many calories. So control your calorie intake. Find out how many calories you should be intaking per day. Work out your macro breakdowns. And then fit foods in around that, because then you're going to help maintain a steady weight, and you're actually going to see your weight decrease, which is then going to give you the proof and you the approval, let's say, that you can have these foods and still enjoy life and lose weight at the same time. That's going to be a key thing. Because if you're not tracking macros or you're not counting calories and you're trying to lose weight and these foods are something that you want to put off, then you're at a stump. You're going to need to start doing that. Flexible dieting, we talked about starting off with small increments. So implementing flexible dieting weekly, and then taking it up, and then understanding that not all foods are bad for you. As well, this is stuff we've already discussed. So just to recap, ice cream isn't bad for you, cookies aren't bad for you, donuts aren't bad for you, McDonald's is bad for you. Now, this is the difference between crap foods and fast foods. Fast food is made up of trans fats and very, very I'm trying to think of the exact wording. I think it's monosaccharides. It's a form of carbohydrate. It's basically just fast-acting carbs, so sugars. But I think it's called monosaccharides or monosaccharides or mono unpolyated, mono something. And yeah, so it's just basically trans fats, bad carbs that are implemented into fast food joints that are different from ice creams and stuff like that, because at least in ice cream you do have a macro breakdown and you do have some form of nutrients in there as well. Whether it's ice cream, you're getting your nutrients from the dairy that's involved in it. McDonald's, KFC, fast food, Burger Kings, Domino's aren't going to contain that much nutrients. So when you eat foods like this, and especially considering a Big Mac meal is maybe like 1,800 calories, and that's just for a burger, and that's chips, and that's not even including the drink. If you go for a Diet Coke, that's 1,700 calories just on a burger and chips. If you go for a full fat Coke, you're talking 2,000, low 2,000s in just this one meal. That is not going to leave you feeling hungry at all. In the food industry, they call it the bliss point, where it leaves you wanting more and not full. So they can give you great taste, but it will not satisfy you. A guy called Matthew Hussey talks about this bliss point as well. That's how I found out about it. So there's that. So there is a difference between fast food being bad for you and genuinely unhealthy, and implementing ice creams into a day-to-day diet, or implementing cookies into a day-to-day diet. It's all about moderation. It's all about taking control and planning ahead and making sure you are accountable for what you eat on that day and being smart. So now that we've talked about that, what's next? I've got understanding food labels. You need to understand food labels. This is another big thing. People will look at the front of a food label where it's got the brief overview of sugars, blah, blah, blah. And people will be like, oh, this is bad for you because it's got 2-3 grams of sugar in it. Turn the food label over, look at the macro breakdowns. Trust me, the amount of times that I've seen, I actually, when a few of my friends got into online personal training with me, I took them to Tesco's, walked them around, showed them foods, and they were like, yeah, but that's got like 4 grams of sugar in it. And I'm like, your point is, who gives a fuck if it's got 4 grams of sugar in it? As long as all of your fucking calories aren't coming from sugar, you'll be somewhat okay. So if you're someone that goes into a supermarket or shopping mall or whatever, your fucking Tesco's, and you just look at the front of a food label and you're like, I can't have that, it's got 4 grams of sugar on it. A lot of things have 4 grams of sugar on it. 4 grams of sugar is not the worst thing in the world. Turn the food label over, and this is again going to link on with you needing to know your macro breakdowns, because filling in your macros is almost like a numbers game. It's like a puzzle. You're trying to fit different macros in at certain points of the day to then make the big picture, which is your overall macro intake. Sorry, printer. So the front of food labels aren't going to tell you the macro breakdowns for this food, so you won't have an idea of how they fit into your diet, and you won't have an idea of how to put them into your diet. Turn it over, look at the macro breakdowns. How much fat, how much protein, how much carbs does it have in it? Say if your overall carb intake for the day is, let's take me for example, I'm on about 16.5, so 165 grams of carbs per day. I can take a tub of ice cream that has like 5 grams of sugar in it. I can turn it over. I can look that the whole entire tub has 68 grams of carbs and 5 grams of sugar. Out of 165 grams of my total carbs, that leaves me with an extra 90 something to use, and I've only had 5 grams of sugar. When you look at the margins and the ratios, that's very little. And this is again understanding your macro breakdowns and your macronutrient requirements, because you can do stuff like this and you can manipulate it like that to fit in, and it's very handy. What else have we got? Understanding macro breakdowns. Fiber's another one. If you eat protein bars like I do, that was a very poor way of transitioning. So fiber is a tricky form of a carb, because some forms of it aren't digested by the body. It passes right through, so it's non-counted carbohydrates. Let's take a Grenade carb killer bar, which I'm in love with at the moment. There's 15 grams of carbs for the whole entire bar, but about 5 of them carbs aren't going to be digested by your body, so you can actually subtract those 5 grams of carbs away from the bar, and giving the grand total to be 10 grams. That would be the dog. And that would give you 10 grams. Now, fiber is something you need to understand, because fiber is good for you. You do need it. I would say you need about 10 grams of fiber for every 1,000 calories that you're intaking. So for me, it's just over 15 to 16 grams of fiber that I need per day. And I would do your own research on that, just because I'm not 1,000,000% on the topic of what fiber is. Just that there are certain types of fiber that aren't digested by your body. These are going to be different in every food label that you do need to track and you do need to look at. I necessarily don't listen to them. If I track a carb killer bar, I track it as 15 grams of carbs. If my body only absorbs 10 grams of those carbs, then the other 5 grams of carbs are going to compensate for the monsters that I drink that do contain calories that I don't track, so everything balances out. I think Pickle wants to see me. Pickle's our dog, if you didn't know. I live in a place with 4 other people, and one of my roommates has a dog called Pickle. She's adorable, and I think she's banging on the door because she knows I'm in here. She can probably hear me. She wants to get in. Don't worry, Pickle, we're nearly done. I'll come out and see you. And then the next thing I want to talk about is the advertisement that food companies have. And that's, you ever gone into the supermarket and you've seen on a bag of crisps 15% less fat, and you're like, oh, that means I can have, no, let's my friend put this in a very good perspective actually. So you go into the supermarket, they got Pringles on offer, 50% less fat. Oh, that means I can have twice as many. So just because something is 50% less bad for you does not mean it's not bad for you. Say if like a bag of crisps has let's say 150% of your daily intake in terms of fat. That's a bit drastic, but forget about the numbers, you know where we're going with this. Say a bag of crisps has 150 grams of your overall fat intake per day, so you've gone 50% over your total intake. Just because that now is 50% lower than that number, it's still 75% of your overall intake on this one food. And it does give people that excuse to have twice as much. So just because it's 50% less fat, you can have twice as much. Well, then you're having twice the calories, because even though the fat's lower, they compensate from increasing the carbs. What you'll find, and this is something that my friend Dave brought up, you go into Tesco's, you go into the healthy living section. Their healthy living, 15% less fat, I can't remember what it was. A topping. I can't remember what it was, but this food was 15% less fat in the healthy living range, and it was 150 calories more than the standard store brand. And people would opt for that because it's listed as healthy living, and it can be classed as healthy living because it's got less fat, because it's got reduced fat. And this is again where looking at food labels comes in handy, because just because it's lower in fat means it's going to be compensated somewhere else. If it's lower fat, they'll probably increase the carbs. If it's half the carbs, they'll probably increase the fat. They need to get the good taste from somewhere, and they'll do it like that. So you need to be aware of food labels to understand how companies are marketing and advertising products to you, so you can understand when you're being fucking mugged off and how you can stop it. And I don't really have a way of outroing this sort of podcast now. We've gone on for 35 minutes, 36. I've touched on all the points that I wanted to. I hope I've come across clear to you guys. I'm sorry if it's not been as uplifting as it usually is. Again, I'm dieting and I'm fucking... It's tough at the moment. It's tough. I've got another 4 weeks and 2 days today. So exactly 4 weeks from today, so 28 days... I think it's let's check. I think it's 4 weeks from today. So we're on the 16th. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, Wednesday the 13th of June. 4 weeks from today, I'll be on a plane. I'll actually be on a plane heading over to Houston, Texas, where in 4 weeks and 2 days from now, I'm going to be stepping on stage at my first ever bodybuilding show, the Summer Shredding Classic, hosted by Christian Guzman, his first ever show for his Summer Shredding event, and hoping that the last 4 months have paid off. So that's going to be good. But I plan to do a podcast talking all about how, like, my sort of progress and my experience with going on a 4-month diet, what I've learned, what I've taken away from it, what I'm going to do next time to improve, and what I'm going to take away from this to do better the next time I cut. But saying that, guys, we're going to bring this podcast to an end. If you're watching this, thank you. I do appreciate you spending the last half an hour with me, just listening to me ramble on. It is very much appreciated, and I love the fact that you keep coming back week to week listening to it. But I will see you on Saturday. I won't see you at all. Okay, let's try this again. Thank you for watching or listening, depending on what you're doing, and I'll see you or hear you, well, you'll hear me in the next podcast, which hopefully I'm going to have another guest on. I'm not promising anything because we're still in talks of getting it organised, but there may be another guest on, and it may be a female. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, guys, have a good week. Take this information, implement it into your day-to-day lives, and I hope it's helped, and I hope you can start to improve your relationships with food, because a life where you restrict yourself from having those foods is just a life that I wouldn't be able to enjoy. I would not survive the last 4 months if I didn't have half these foods. So just do your research.